Tonight, Middle Eastern Gulf states under attack by Iran request Australian military assistance. Yuma, good evening. I'm Adrienne coming to you from Ngunnawal country, and we also acknowledge others with connections to the lands of the ACT. This is ABC News. Also tonight, the NT town of Katherine experiences its worst flooding in almost 3 decades. Inside the by-election, presenting the first big test for Angus Taylor's Liberal leadership. Cut from the same cloth, the Quilters celebrating 5 decades of uniting Canberra's craftswomen. And the raid in Lee. The Australian government is considering deploying forces to the Middle East in a defensive capacity as more Gulf nations are drawn into the widening war with Iran. The conflict has exploded to new heights in Tehran, with pillars of fire rising above an oil storage facility. Despite pledging to stop, Iran has intensified retaliatory strikes on its neighbours, hitting Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Bahrain. The Australian government has ruled out sending troops into Iran, but there are reports emerging that the US and Israel are weighing up a plan that would put boots on the ground to secure stockpiles of uranium. We start our coverage of the war tonight in the Middle East with Global Affairs editor Laura Tingle in Dubai.
Driving into an inferno, apocalyptic scenes emerging from Iran. The pillars of fire visible from kilometres away after an Israeli strike hits oil storage facilities in Tehran.
We have an organised plan with many surprises to destabilise the regime and enable change.
I think we've accomplished more in 1 week than anyone thought possible.
But as the US president warns of Iran's complete destruction, the regime is hitting back, launching drones across the Gulf,
Oh my God.
hitting the world's busiest airport in Dubai. Passengers in the terminal fleeing for safety. Australian Luke Greeley was there.
They just herded thousands of people from the departure gates downstairs, held us there for about an hour while we could hear explosions overhead.
As the war intensifies across the Middle East, the Australian government is now offering ground transport for stranded citizens.
To date, we have about 11,000 that we have assessed as eligible and seeking to leave.
Any hope of confining this war to its 3 main actors has been dashed. After a pledge from Iran's president to stop pounding its neighbours across the Gulf, Iran launched fresh strikes towards Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Kuwait. Iran's foreign minister warning, if Mr Trump seeks escalation, it is precisely what he will get. The Gulf states are not combatants in this war, but find themselves under more aerial attack than Israel. Their patience is wearing thin as their reputations as safe havens in a troubled region are undermined. The Gulf is also where the greatest point of global leverage in this conflict is being applied: oil. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Gulf countries have cut back production. That makes what happens in the Gulf everyone's business.
Many countries which are non-participants have been attacked by Iran through this. You would anticipate as a consequence that we have been asked for assistance, and we will work through that in accordance with the position I have outlined, which is we are not participating in offensive action against Iran. We would not participate in any ground troop deployment into Iran.
Troops which have started coming home to the United States. The human cost coming into the US president's direct focus, saluting 6 US service members killed in the first days of the war. America's appetite for conflict likely to grow thin with every life lost. Laura Tingle, ABC News, Dubai.
President Donald Trump has yet to commit to sending troops into Iran, but there are reports emerging tonight that the US and Israel are discussing a plan that would involve boots on the ground. Let's bring in correspondent Bridget Rollerson, now in Jerusalem. Bridget, what do we know?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion about how long this war will last and what it would take for this conflict to end. US President Donald Trump has made clear that he wants to see regime change in Iran, but he also wants to destroy Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities. As the US and Israel have been obliterating targets in Iran from the sky, there are now reports that the countries are considering sending in special forces to secure Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium, which is the main ingredient needed to make a nuclear bomb. Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities were severely damaged during the 12-day war last year in June, but the International Atomic Energy Agency says Iran's enriched stockpile of uranium has reached close to weapons grade. President Donald Trump was asked about this on Air Force One today, and he didn't rule it out. And he said while he wouldn't be sending troops in now, it's something that could happen maybe later on. And whether that is weeks or months away, we just don't know, as this conflict seems to intensify and expand almost every day.
Bridget Rollison in Jerusalem, thank you. The US president has ruled out asking Kurdish forces in Iraq to join the war, despite previously encouraging them to do so. The involvement of the Kurds could open up a new front in the conflict, but Donald Trump says it's complicated enough. ABC correspondent Karishma Vyas has travelled to the Iraqi city of Erbil.
Crossing the border from Turkey into Iraqi Kurdistan, another hotspot in an ever-expanding war. There are reports that Kurdish militia based along the Iraqi Kurdistan's border with Iran are preparing for a ground offensive. And if that happens, that's a real game changer. Iran and the militias it backs have been hitting American and Kurdish targets across Iraq. Drones have struck warehouses and offices used by US firms in the oil sector. Rockets are being fired at the American embassy in Baghdad. The airport and the US consulate in Erbil also targets.
We're on the outskirts of Erbil city, and I want to give you a bit of the lay of the land. Now, behind me, this zone is called the Golden Zone. This is where the international airport is. It's the wealthier part of town. It's also where the drone strikes have been targeting all week. There's a hotel just over here called the Rotana, and that was hit by a drone. Now, these drones are coming from this direction. You have Mosul over here and Kirkuk over here. And that's where Iraqi militias closely aligned with the Iranian regime are launching these weapons.
Donald Trump had been encouraging Kurdish forces to join the fight against Iran, but has now backed away.
We're very friendly with the Kurds, as you know, but we don't want to make the war any more complex than it already is. No.
Roll that out?
We don't want, I have ruled it out. I don't want the Kurds going in. I don't want to see the Kurds get hurt, get killed.
People living here in the semi-autonomous territory of Iraqi Kurdistan are already on edge.
How could we not be afraid? We are afraid. This is natural because we have no power or control over it.
Fear at what could lie ahead. Karishma Vyas, ABC News, Erbil.
There are calls for the Australian government to consider asylum for the Iranian soccer team, with growing fears that players or their families could be punished for their actions while playing in Australia. After not singing the national anthem before their opening game in the Asian Cup, state-controlled Iranian media condemned the side, raising concerns they would be detained and prosecuted upon returning home. Let's bring in the ABC's Deputy Sport Editor, Amanda Shalala now. Amanda, Amnesty International says it's the moment for the government to step up. Has anyone heard from the players directly?
Adrienne, not at this stage. Penny Wong, the Foreign Minister, was asked about the situation on ABC's Insiders today. She didn't want to comment on this situation specifically, but she did say that the government stands in solidarity with the people of Iran. It's incredibly difficult for anyone to get in touch with the players. They're constantly surrounded by security staff, with some of those believed to be connected to the Islamic Republic regime. I've spoken to many Iranian Australians who are desperately trying to get a message to the players that they will be safe if they choose to stay here. But we've also heard that their families have been threatened with punishment if they don't return home. I've also spoken to Amnesty International Australia, and they say the players' best option now is to stay here and for their families to leave Iran.
Amanda Shalala in Sydney, thank you. In the Northern Territory's top end, monsoonal downpours have caused some of the worst flooding communities have seen in decades. The town of Katherine has been inundated and cut off, with major flood levels peaking overnight. And in communities across the Daly River region, large-scale evacuations continued into the night as river levels continued to rise. James Elton reports from Katherine.
From the air, the full scale of the Katherine flood is revealed. Water surrounding the town as it peaked last night, inundating homes.
I can confirm that we are activating disaster assistance payments for the Katherine local government area, and our priority has been to make sure that those people can have access to support as quickly as possible.
Housemates Maggie, Grace and Georgie had water rise rapidly around their house.
Officially flooded.
Midday we went for a walk and we're feeling optimistic, go check out the rest of the town, see everyone's faring, and we come back and we had to walk through like hip deep water.
The water flooded their downstairs bedroom and laundry. Today they were still surrounded and without power. Feeling grateful things weren't worse, as they have been for many others, still unreachable. While around 500 people remain in shelters on high ground, in the town centre floodwaters have receded substantially. Attention now turning to the recovery.
Our focus is primarily hospital, schools and government business and getting those open.
In the Daly River region, after weeks of rainfall, the communities of Nauyu and Palumpa have been evacuated, including 80 rescues by boat overnight.
That response, that evacuation, utilised 18 helicopters. So it just shows you the sheer scale of the task that was ahead of us.
The Daly River's levels are still slowly rising and are expected to hit at least 15 metres.
At this stage, we're expecting it to stay in excess of major flood level for at least the week and into next weekend.
The river levels are already higher than the peak of last month's major flood, which forced the evacuation of the same residents. This time, they're facing an even longer wait to return home. James Elton, ABC News.
Successive polls have shown support for the coalition plummeting, while One Nation has increased its base. Those figures will be put to the test when voters in the New South Wales seat of Farrer go to the polls in May, following the resignation of Liberal leader Susan Lee. The party is yet to choose who will run, but this by-election has already been badged as a test for her successor Angus Taylor, and a chance for One Nation to show whether it can secure support at the ballot box. Here's political reporter Stephanie Burris.
It's a part of the food bowl of the nation. You've got the citrus. You've then got all the wineries, the grapes. There's several of us involved in potatoes. It's a really, really productive area when things are going right.
Everyone's talking Pauline Hanson. She's going to straighten Australia out to what it used to be.
People are screaming for help, and it seems like the two major parties don't want to do anything.
It's after 5 on a Wednesday. Locals and migrant workers pour into the Blighty pub, where politics is on the menu.
We have been abandoned, neglected. The mothers and the women in Deniliquin are asking for help. No health care, childcare, irrigation care. No.
At the moment, Independent Michelle Millthorpe is on the campaign trail again as people prepare to return to the polls for the second time in less than a year, following the resignation of Liberal leader Susan Lee.
The first time I didn't vote for Susan Lee was when I voted for myself.
Last year, the Independents secured nearly 44% of the vote after preferences.
People are feeling disenfranchised. We want people to be doing the job that they're getting paid for, and we're not seeing that happen.
The federal seat of Farrer has always been coalition heartland.
Normally, it should be a pretty easy contest for them, but given what is going on nationally and given the complete restructure of the right side of politics in this country, I would say it's going to be pretty difficult. difficult for them to hold on to.
We've got about 8,500 acres.
Jeff Moore's donated to Susan Lee's campaign in the past, but he's fed up with the Liberals and Nationals.
We have to get someone that really looks at food security and gets involved with the politics on water.
In this region, water is at the centre of politics. It's where farmers burnt copies of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, and many are still calling for a royal commission.
What you can do with your plan.
For voters like Jeff, Pauline Hanson's message is cutting through.
I tell you, they're really taken to her. You know, there's been a huge change.
This region relies on migrants working the farms, presenting a challenge to a party best known for its hardline stance on immigration.
The reality is parts of Farrer, if not all of Farrer, welcomes and accepts good migrants into it. That's what drives our economy.
But not everyone is convinced One Nation is the way to go.
Really don't bring much positivity to the whole scene.
I don't think they're going to pick up a lot of votes. I think we're still a Liberal national seat.
I think we've got a really strong chance. When you look at what we represent and the people of Farrer, they've been waiting for us to come back.
This by-election is the first federal test for One Nation to determine whether successive polls showing a rise in support for the party translate into real votes here in Farrer. The Liberals are trying to manage expectations. They're describing it as a tough contest. For Angus Taylor, he has to prove he can stop voters drifting away from the party. Coalition voters are looking at options. Felicity Michael runs one of 2 childcare centres in Deniliquin. They have 250 families on the wait list, desperate for a spot.
Whether it be childcare, whether it be aged care, whether it be our irrigation systems, haven't been able to get the attention that they need because we're a safe seat.
No longer safe, she hopes politicians will now take notice.
Even if the Conservative, the Libs or Nats got back in again, my hope is that they wouldn't take us for granted.
We desperately at the moment need help.
Who else do we ask for help if we can't ask our politicians?
Returning to the war in Iran, and economically the country was already broken long before the US and Israeli airstrikes after years of international sanctions and chronic mismanagement. The ABC's Alan Kohler looks at how the military escalation accelerated a financial collapse that was already underway.
You've got to wonder whether the people in the Middle East are lucky or unlucky that 200 million years ago their land was an ocean teeming with plankton that died and turned into colossal amounts of oil beneath their deserts. Some people have done well, but for most it's meant nothing but tyranny and misery, especially the poor citizens of Iran. For the past 50 years, this country has averaged more than $40 billion per year in oil revenue. Yet it's broke, the economy in ruins. The 2 Shahs that were installed and supported by Britain and America between 1925 and 1979 to keep control of the oil either wasted it or stole it. And since then, the Ayatollahs have spent it on weapons and terrorism, leading to sanctions that devastated the economy. And now many of the men who made those decisions are dead, and the survivors are dispatching drones with bombs attached all over the Middle East. So once again, it's oil shock time, with queues to petrol stations to beat the price rise. And fair enough. Every dollar per barrel on the oil price turns into a cent per litre at the Australian Bowser. Australia's weekly household petrol bill has already more than doubled in the past 25 years, a lot more than inflation. Another cost of living whack on the top of house prices. So will this turn into another oil shock like the ones in the 70s, or the Gulf Wars, or the Ukraine War? Well, nobody knows, least of all the men doing it. It comes down to the Straits of Hormuz, the 39-kilometre wide passage with Iran on one side and Oman and UAE on the other, through which 20% of the world's oil passes, as well as fertiliser, gas and plastics. And right now, it's closed. Here's a chart of where the oil usually comes from and goes to through that passage. On the left are the owners of the former plankton, mostly Saudi Arabia and Iraq. And on the right are the buyers, mostly China and India. And notice which country is on the bottom of the buy side of that chart, the United States. They need hardly any of it. They've got all their own oil. They're fine.
Back home now, and quilting is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but an often overlooked art form. A new exhibition is celebrating the impressive legacy of Canberra's Quilting Guild that's been bringing crafters together for 50 years.
It's a community stitched together with conversation, creativity and craftswomanship.
Just have to come and brag because it's not very often I win anything.
The Canberra Quilters is the oldest patchwork group in Australia. What started as a tiny newspaper ad in 1976 led to lounge room meetings and now a group of several hundred members.
When you give someone a quilt and it's folded, they always hug it. You can depend on it. It's that connection of warmth and care.
The group is in the spotlight at a new exhibition at the Canberra Museum and Gallery, celebrating quilting as an art form.
It's not very much respected as a medium. It gets shoved in the line of women's work and something Granny used to do.
It's something that takes thousands of hours, and they're no longer just made from scraps, no longer just on a bed. They're actually made specifically for exhibition.
Quilting is a multi-billion-dollar industry in North America. But this show has plenty of Australian flair, and many of these intricate designs have won awards.
Every work in this exhibition is a true labour of love. This quilt was started in Scotland in 1959 and wasn't completed until 1981 here in Canberra.
For many quilters, it's about the connection as much as the craft.
The friendships you develop when you're sitting quilting together are a little bit like the friendships on a very long car trip. If you drive to Perth with someone, by the time you get there you know them, and quilting's like that.
Lily Nothling, ABC News, Canberra.
More than 100 female cyclists and their supporters traded their lycra for colourful costumes before hitting Canberra's roads today as part of a fun-filled group ride with a serious message. Now a global movement, the Fancy Women's Bike Ride started in Turkey in 2013 to affirm women's rights to be safe, visible and confident cycling on city streets. Pedal Power ACT organised the last year's Canberra debut to coincide with International Women's Day and returned this year to lead participants on an eye-catching 7-kilometre loop of the inner north, advocating for more inclusive cycling infrastructure and addressing women's barriers to participation in the process.
It's about keeping women safe on the roads from harassment, from cars. So infrastructure is designed to make it feel easy for them, because if it's easy, people will do it.
South Sydney's dismantled the Dolphins to launch their 2026 campaign in style, prevailing 40-30 at Lang Park. Despite bad weather in Brisbane, it was a high-scoring affair as the sides combined for 12 tries to finish off the opening round of the NRL season.
Ponchos were amassed at a drenched Lang Park as the Rabbitohs took just 2 minutes to open their account in 2026.
Here's Campbell Graham for the corner.
The Dolphins hit back through an intercept.
Avarillo will go the length.
After trading further blows, the hosts were soon left in the dust after a 3-try burst from the Bunnies on the stroke of half-time.
211 and counting for Alex Johnston.
The 18-point deficit, no worries for the Dolphins, though, as they set the match up for a grandstand finish.
Here he is, WA Fido, stepping straight through the line, bursting in to score.
But South Sydney were unfazed by the resurgence, responding with points of their own.
Latrell goes in for his double.
In rugby union, the Reds have snapped a 5-year drought in Canberra thanks to off-season signing Carter Gordon, who sliced through in the 83rd minute to break the Brumbies' hearts and seal a dramatic comeback win. Queensland trailed by 11 with 2 minutes to play before a Filippo Daugunu try gave the Reds hope. Pinned on their own line with the clock ticking, a brilliant run from Jock Campbell got them in a position for the match winner that ended the Brumbies' unbeaten start to the season. The hometown hero, Oscar Piastri, has made a disastrous start to the Formula One season, crashing out of the Australian Grand Prix before the race had begun. The Mercedes team dominated at Albert Park, with George Russell victorious ahead of Kimi Antonelli.
This is what Albert Park did not want to see.
Oscar Piastri had been hoping to become the first Australian to win his home Grand Prix in Melbourne, but didn't even make it to the grid.
That is the sort of incident you would not expect a driver of Oscar Piastri's calibre to be making.
The McLaren team was shocked, as were thousands of fans who'd come to see Piastri race.
This is heartbreak for Oscar Piastri.
With the actual crash, there was a combination of a couple of things, you know, a large element of just me, you know, cold tyres, the exit curb, but I also had 100 kilowatts more power than I expected.
It's lights out, away we go!
New regulations with lighter, smaller, harder to handle cars were expected to provide unpredictable, exciting racing. Pole sitter George Russell and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc exchanged the lead in the early laps.
It's a massive lock-up from George Russell. He did well to stay on the track, but Charles Leclerc's going to get that lead back again.
The Red Bull of Isaac Hadjar made a smoky exit, and new team Cadillac was down to one driver after Valtteri Bottas departed.
We might have lost the honorary Aussie on lap 18 here.
The Englishman Russell grabbed back the lead, and that's where he stayed. The world champion Lando Norris held off a challenge from Max Verstappen and finished fifth.
53 seconds off the lead now, Norris.
Russell took the victory ahead of Mercedes teammate Kimi Antonelli, while Leclerc was third.
Very nice. I like this car. I like this engine.
An ominous warning from a team that has been tipped to thrive in the new look Formula One. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
Australia has sent off retiring captain Elisa Healy in style, thrashing India by 10 wickets inside 3 days in the women's test in Perth. The hosts bowled India out for 149 in their second innings, a half-century from Pratika Rawl, the only real resistance. It left Australia needing 25 runs to win, a target reached in less than 5 overs to seal the multi-format series. Healy was cheered around the Wacker ground by Elise Perry and Ash Gardner to mark the end of her 299-game international career. To the weather now, and your observations of the storm passing over last night. In Cornwall, Tuggeranong, Alicia Spindler captured lightning striking the sky over the valley, and at the bus depot markets in Kingston, Ainsley Moorthorpe observed the beautiful sunset within the thunderstorm. At the Enlighten Festival, Jen Morton tracked the storm's stunning aftermath. And also at Enlighten, Joe Lane of Canberra was drawn to the sight of the storm clouds above our sparkling Ouroboros at the NGA. That storm that swept through Canberra delivered more than 57 millimetres of rain at Ginninderra in just 30 minutes last night, while 41 millimetres fell near Gundaroo Road at Horse Park in the same time period. And this morning we began with a low temperature of 16 degrees at Canberra Airport and 17 in the Valley. We warmed to 22 degrees today. Around the capital at Jervis Bay, 20 millimetres was received overnight and an additional 11 millimetres through the day. And at Moruya, 5 millimetres fell overnight with another 9 millimetres today. Further inland, Goulburn reached a top of 20, Cooma 19 degrees and Griffith 34. Across the nation, Hobart and Adelaide began on lows of 12 degrees. Through the day, Perth reached a maximum of 34 degrees, followed by Broome on 33. The satellite is showing cloud across the far north of Western Australia, the top end and Queensland, with an active monsoon trough and lows bringing rain and storms. And cloud over the east of New South Wales and the southwest of Western Australia with troughs is bringing showers. Tomorrow, thunderstorms are on the way for Darwin and Townsville, and a wet-looking picture for Broome, Cairns, Brisbane and Sydney. Partly cloudy for Melbourne with 28. The top, Adelaide sunny and 27. Around the capital region, Queanbeyan can expect a low of 13 and a cloudy top of 25. Yass Valley will begin on 13 with a partly cloudy and dry day, 25 the top. Along the coast at the Bay, temperatures are forecast to range between 16 to 24. Canberra can expect a low of 13 degrees north side and 14 in the valley before a cloudy top of 25 degrees. The sun will rise at 6:52 a.m. and set at 7:35 p.m. Looking ahead, on Tuesday we can expect a low of 13 degrees with cloud clearing and a top of 29. Wednesday, partly cloudy with 30 the top. Showers increasing again Thursday with a top of just 27 degrees. Cloudy, cool and possibly a little more moisture from Friday through to Sunday. And that's ABC News for this Sunday night. From me, Adrienne Francis, thanks for your company. Enjoy your evening and what's left of the weekend and the week ahead. Yeah, good night.